Welcome to Boring History Podcast. This time we're talking about medieval sleep. You've made it to a quiet little corner of the internet. I'm really glad you're here. Take a slow, gentle breath and let your eyes start to soften. There's nothing you need to do right now, nothing to fix, nothing to chase. This moment is just for you. You are safe here exactly as you are. Let the world outside fade away for a while. Let your mind float freely as we quietly wander through the past together, like pages turning in a book you don't need to finish. And if this feels like a nice place to rest, you're welcome to like and subscribe only if it feels right in your heart. And if you're still awake, I'd love to know what time it is for you and where in the world you're listening from. I think that's a beautiful thing to share. So, when we think about sleep in the medieval world, the image, well, it's often far from comfortable, isn't it? We might picture someone just, crawling into bed for a cozy night, but the stark reality was it is truly brutal. Imagine yourself lying there, knowing your bed itself was probably crawling with lice and bed bugs. The air around you would be shivering cold, and you could actually hear, and sometimes even feel, rats scurrying over your legs.
Scurrying rats.
It's a profoundly different picture of what it meant to just go to sleep.
And it wasn't just you alone either. Everyone was often sort of jammed together in these sleeping spaces.
Right.
Your immediate family, maybe your servants, and even complete strangers if you were staying in an inn.
Strangers, wow.
Yeah. And the rooms themselves were incredibly drafty, allowing cold air to seep in from every crack. You might even find something as surprising as like cow dung underfoot, tracked in from the animals maybe, or just a hard, unforgiving brick floor beneath you.
Brick floors. Indoors.
Sometimes. It really shifts your perspective on how many bodies could be in one confined space.
And the fear. It sounds like it was just pervasive. As night fell, you would literally pray against demons, hoping to ward them off. You might even keep a dagger right there in your hand.
Just in case.
Exactly. And sleep would be constantly interrupted. Jolting you will make it the slightest sound. The distant peal of a church bell cutting through the quiet.
Right, those bells.
The sharp bark of a dog just outside, or even the insistent throbbing pain of an abscess in your own body. It's hard to fathom.
So today we're going to explore the truly grisly details. We'll look into the widespread idea of shared beds, the constant presence of crawling vermin, the very real, deeply felt fear of demons, and the power of ingrained superstitions.
Okay.
We'll also touch on the ever-present threat of accidental injury or even blood, and the stark reality of death. When you hear all of this, the modern comfort we experience every single night will feel, I think, truly miraculous.
Yeah.
A blessing we often just take for granted.
It's almost impossible to truly wrap your mind around, isn't it? Just the sheer vulnerability of living like that every night, even before we get into the specifics.
It absolutely is. You can practically feel the chill in the air and that constant sense of unease just from this brief glimpse into their nightly lives.
Yeah.
It's unsettling.
Let's begin then by quietly stepping into the homes of medieval people, from the humblest peasant, all the way up to the grandest noble. What we'll see of their sleeping quarters might truly surprise you with its raw simplicity and often its profound discomfort. For the peasants, sleeping arrangements were incredibly basic. They'd often sleep directly on dirt floors.
Dirt floors?
Or maybe on simple wooden platforms. And their mattress material, typically just straw or rushes, gathered from the fields.
And for poorer families, the situation was even more dire. They would pile layers of often wet, lice-infested straw right on the ground.
Wet straw. Oh my.
Yeah, and this straw could sometimes be trampled into mud from the day's activities. It really makes you shudder to think about damp, buggy mud as your bed.
Definitely.
Historical reconstruction suggests that these improvised beds most likely consisted of little more than, a straw mattress, maybe a simple pillow, and some wool blankets or furs if they were lucky.
The idea of a dedicated bedroom, a private space just for sleeping, it simply didn't exist for most people. Entire families would bunk together in one smoky hall, often right by the hearth where the fire burned, or maybe on raised benches built into the walls. As you imagine this, you can almost smell the pervasive smoke in the air.
Oh, definitely.
And feel the chill that would inevitably creep in if you were too far from the fire's precious warmth.
And here's a truly surprising detail. To survive the brutal winter cold, peasants often kept their livestock, their cows, pigs, or goats, right under the same roof.
Inside, with them.
Or in an attached shed, yeah.
Yeah.
This wasn't about convenience, it was purely for warmth. In some regions, the cow's barn was even built directly against the house, specifically to share that precious animal heat.
Wow.
Families might literally sleep next to or sometimes even on top of these animals.
Yeah.
It paints a vivid picture of just desperate practicality, doesn't it?
It really does. All for survival against that cold.
Exactly.
Even what were considered the, fanciest beds in the medieval period were, by our standards, still pretty awful. A noble's bed would typically be a wooden frame with ropes stretched tightly across it.
Like a net.
Sort of, yeah, to support a thin mattress stuffed with either hay or feathers.
And those grand four-poster frames we often associate with medieval luxury, with their heavy curtains or canopies.
Yeah.
They weren't just for show. Their primary purpose was incredibly practical. They were designed specifically to block drafts and, get this, deter rats.
Rats again. So curtains were partly rat-proofing.
Apparently so. And even with down or wool blankets, which offered some help, they were often damp because of the humidity.
Damp blankets.
And being just inches from a cold stone floor meant truly freezing nights. One castle visitor even recalled rooms that were so cold that in the morning you might see your breath in the air.
You could see your breath indoors.
People slept bundled in layers, sometimes with hair locked in frost. Imagine that. You could almost visualize that frosty hair.
Yeah.
Feel that brittle, numbing cold.
Frost in your hair. That's intense. And privacy, as we understand it today, was just completely non-existent, right?
Totally. Nobody had private space for sleeping. Servants, squires, guards, all slept on pallets or straw mats right there on the floor in the same chamber as their lords and ladies.
So everyone just piled in?
In castles, it was truly a communal experience. Everyone from the highest knights down to the lowliest laundry maids might occupy the same great hall at night.
The whole hierarchy together.
Pretty much. Even nobles, who had more status, often dozed in a hall alongside their kin and retainers. They might only later move to a smaller solar room if they were wealthy enough to afford one, but that was less common.
It's fascinating how wealth didn't really translate into comfort the way we think of it.
Not in the same way, no.
Rich folks certainly had more fabrics and cushions, sure, but their rooms weren't noticeably cleaner or cozier.
Exactly. Wealthier houses still often had dirt floors, though these were usually covered in rushes, and their bedding was still, pretty stinky, just like everyone else's.
Still stinky.
One account notes that the curtains and canopies we talked about only really came into widespread use midway through the medieval period. But even with those, the nobles' tapestries still leaked wind and cobwebs.
Cobwebs.
Money truly bought more furs, but it certainly didn't buy flush toilets or daily baths. The rich were only marginally warmer and never truly sanitary. It really highlights that even with all the trappings of power, some fundamental human comforts were just absent for everyone.
Yeah.
Discomfort was, in many ways, the great equalizer across social classes,
It seems so. So whether peasant or noble, if you can picture it, the core elements of medieval sleep were strikingly similar. Communal space, really simple bedding, and this constant, unrelenting battle against the elements and, other living things. That shared experience of discomfort is quite something.
If the very idea of personal space is important to you, then this next part might feel a little, crowded. Because in medieval times, a bed wasn't just your private sanctuary, it was a communal hub. And what happened within its confines could be quite eye-opening.
Okay, I'm bracing myself.
The concept of communal beds was broad and pervasive. Families, guests, servants, whoever happened to be around, would simply pile together into a single bed.
Just whoever was there.
Pretty much. As one history blog puts it very clearly, stating that beds were communal places. An entire family might sleep together. Non-family members would also be likely to crawl in. Guests, friends, servants.
Guests and friends, too.
Yep. This wasn't unusual. It was just how things were. The usual arrangement was that the married couple would lie in the middle of the bed.
The prime spot.
Right. With their children layered along the edges, typically by age. You could just picture the varying sizes of bodies and how incredibly tightly packed that space would have been.
Elbows and knees everywhere.
Probably. And if you were traveling and staying at an inn, there were no private rooms to rent. Not like today. You simply rented a bed space.
A space in a bed.
Exactly. Inns would provide the bed frames and some bedding, and strangers would often share the very same mattress, side by side.
Side by side with a stranger. Wow.
And there was this unspoken expectation to navigate this close proximity with a certain decorum. Sleepers and would-be sleepers were expected to minimize their fidgeting and avoid physical contact.
So try not to bump the stranger.
Basically.
Yeah.
Gives you a sense of polite awkwardness, right?
Yeah.
Trying very hard not to disturb or accidentally touch someone you'd never met before.
So the blunt reality was you could literally wake up Spooning someone you've never met.
Chuckle slightly. That's one way to put it, yeah. It could happen.
That's just wild.
And given so many people piled together in one bed, privacy for, well, intimate acts was simply non-existent.
Ah, right.
This certainly led to what we might consider semi-public sex.
Semi-public.
As one commentator rather bluntly notes, medieval folks took a tiptoe approach, no privacy for conjugal relations.
Tiptoe approach.
Lords and ladies might conceive children right there in the great hall, with their underlings milling about, just going about their daily business.
While people were working.
It seems so. In fact, medieval advice even suggested that the midnight wake period, that time between their first and second sleep, was considered an ideal time for conjugal relations.
Oh, right, that wakeful period.
Yes. It really shifts your understanding of privacy, doesn't it?
Completely.
What we considered deeply personal was just part of the fabric of daily life, right there for everyone to glimpse, essentially.
And to stay warm, you mentioned people slept clothed.
Many people went to bed fully dressed, or at least in a simple tunic, yeah. And they often slept with weapons right on them.
Weapons in bed.
Monks, for instance, were explicitly forbidden from sleeping with knives in their beds. But the very existence of this rule tells us that most people did so as a practical precaution.
Makes sense, given the dangers.
Women often slept with small change or jewelry secretly tucked into their shift, while travelers might keep coins or a dagger tied to the belt at night. You can just picture someone reaching under their shift to check for coins or a weapon before finally drifting off.
Constant vigilance, even in sleep.
And if you can imagine the royal courts, they were truly a sleep circus. Cramped and chaotic spaces, even for the powerful.
A sleep circus.
Kings or queens might sleep in a curtained bed, sure, but they never, ever slept alone. They were constantly surrounded by their bodyguards, servants, maybe even royal mistresses.
All in the same room.
Guards were sometimes even posted inside the bedchamber itself, mere feet from the royal couple.
Wow.
For less important nobility and pages, they simply slept on benches or floor cushions within the same chamber.
So the king is asleep, and there are just people everywhere.
Pretty much. One source quipped that there was no privacy. Everyone knew when you needed to pee or pass gas. The whole castle smelled of it.
Oh, lovely. The smell.
Just imagine that pervasive, constant odor and the sheer, inescapable awareness of everyone else around you.
Thinking about it, the very idea of a good night's sleep meant something completely different for them, didn't it?
Totally different.
It wasn't about quiet solitude or personal space, but about simply existing very closely with everyone else. It puts our modern preferences for individual bedrooms in a whole new light.
Absolutely. It was a communal existence, day and night.
So if you can recall, that communal nature was key. Beds as shared spaces, a profound lack of privacy, and a constant awareness of those around you. That closeness is hard to picture. Okay, now let's move into a slightly less pleasant part of our journey into the medieval night.
Right.
Imagine feeling a tiny, unseen visitor, or maybe a much larger, furrier one, making itself quite at home alongside you. This next section explores the unwelcome bedmates that were an inevitable, constant part of medieval sleep.
The creepy crawlies.
Exactly. Let's begin with the ubiquitous presence of bugs. Bedbugs, fleas, and lice were a constant reality, literally feasting on medieval sleepers every night. They were just part of the experience.
Ugh. University entomologists have confirmed that bedbugs have done so since ancient times.
No.
Bedbugs are mentioned in medieval European texts. So this wasn't a new problem.
Been around forever.
Fleas and mites absolutely thrived in those straw mattresses and wool blankets. Historic accounts even say that fleas, rats, and mice flourished in the filthy homes of the time.
Flourished. Nice.
Even the padding in their furniture, often made of hay and wool, served as a perfect petri dish for all sorts of insects.
Oh, great.
There was even a rhyme that went, "Worms in your hands and fleas in your bed," confirming that people literally found fleas crawling over them at night.
Worms meaning lice, right.
Right, often lice. It's enough to make you shiver with disgust just thinking about it.
Definitely gives me the creeps. And it wasn't just fleas. Worms, as you said, often meant lice. Head and body lice were constantly crawling through everyone's hair and clothing.
A relentless, itchy presence.
And there are even records showing that royalty were not spared. The corpse of England's Richard III from the 15th century was found with giant concentrations of roundworm eggs.
Roundworm eggs.
Ew.
And other nobles were famously noted to have had lice even after death. Children especially would pass lice to each other very easily as they huddled together under blankets. A constant source of irritation. And there were simply no knit combs or modern shampoos to combat this.
Nothing they could really do.
Only a few herbs, like bedstraw, were sometimes scattered in straw to try and deter fleas, but nothing truly eliminated them. It gives you a profound sense of helplessness against the constant infestation.
Just have to live with it. And then there were the larger, furrier creatures, rats and mice.
Right. Greedy rats in particular would boldly invade bedrooms at night, seeking warmth and food.
Boldly invade.
People constantly complained of rats gnawing at their toes.
Gnawing toes.
Trying to eat their meager food supplies, or even nesting right in their beds.
Nesting in the bed, oh my god.
The rushes that covered castle floors often hid rodent droppings and bones beneath them, a silent testament to their presence.
Lovely carpet.
At night, the slightest rustle in the dark could easily be a rat on your pillow, or worse, scuttling across your face.
Nope, absolutely not.
And of course, in crowded towns, rats were notorious for spreading the plague. But even on normal nights, their verminous presence was a constant, unwelcome companion. It's a stark reminder that nature, in its less appealing forms, was a very close, very uninvited guest in every bed.
Uninvited is right.
The sheer density of life, even unpleasant life, was constant.
Beyond the creatures, the bedding and floors themselves were just incredibly filthy. Sheets and blankets were rarely washed.
If ever.
And indeed, people rarely washed themselves, period. Floors were typically littered with the previous night's scraps and trash.
Feeding the pests.
Exactly. Providing a perfect breeding ground for flies and all sorts of filth. Many people slept on straw or heather that had been walked on, and even, disturbingly, had been used for bodily relief.
You mean pee?
Chamber pots were sometimes used for urination, but it was often considered better a quick corner pee than risk being blamed for covering the family bed in stink.
A quick corner pee indoors.
Right. The health consequences of this constant filth were dire. Skin infections ran rampant, with scabies mites literally crawling on people's faces.
Scabies on the face.
No, that's awful.
Untreated wounds festered open, causing oozing sores that made lying still an agony, and these sores could even attract maggots.
Maggots. Okay, that's enough.
The very idea of clean sheets was purely a medieval fantasy.
Yeah. It really makes you appreciate the simple luxury of a laundered sheet, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
To think of the constant irritation, the bites, the smells. It's a truly humbling thought about the raw realities of the past.
So, just picture that constant presence of parasites, vermin, and the sheer dirtiness that was simply a part of nightly life for everyone. It's hard to shake that image.
Okay, so beyond the inhabitants of the bed, imagine the very air around you, constantly battling against the elements, trying desperately to find warmth or sometimes just a moment of cool reprieve. Medieval nights were a relentless struggle with the weather.
Right, the temperature itself. Let's begin with the freezing winters. Houses had absolutely no insulation. Their walls were made of wood, wattle, or stone, barely keeping the rain out.
Wattle and daub, yeah.
Windows were essentially just holes, often covered with oiled hide or simple wood shutters, offering very little protection from the cold.
Oiled hide. Like parchment.
Sort of, yeah. Translucent but not transparent.
Tapestries and heavy drapes that hung on walls and around beds were certainly meant to block the wind, but as one account puts it, their seals on the window trimmings were not as good as ours, so drafts still poured in relentlessly.
Drafts everywhere.
You can almost feel that biting chill seeping in and hear the rustle of those tapestries as the wind found its way through every single crack.
Medieval diaries vividly describe waking in a 50-degree effort bedroom, while outside it's 10 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's a huge difference, but still freezing inside.
Exactly. Waking with breath misting visibly in the morning air. You can almost see that white cloud of your own breath and feel the numb fingers from the cold.
The extreme consequences of this cold were just tragic. Many peasants simply didn't survive the night. Historians note frozen bodies found on straw.
Oh, terrible.
Or simple coughs that quickly turned into fatal pneumonia. Life was that fragile.
One chronicler recounts that even nobles resorted to burning fireplaces or braziers right at their bedside, risking smoke inhalation and even asphyxiation just to stay alive.
Burning coal right next to the bed, that sounds dangerous.
Extremely. It gives you a chilling understanding of the desperate, often dangerous measures people took just to make it through the night.
And if you were lucky enough to have a blanket, it was likely a shared one, right?
Very likely. A family might have just one single wool blanket for 2 or more people.
Leading to fights.
Exactly. Leading to constant fights over the covers and sore backs from sleeping half on a cold stone floor. If you were truly unlucky, maybe a younger child, You could be left with just the cold floor if you lost the blanket tug of war.
That's heartbreaking.
And it's important to remember that money didn't guarantee heat. Even kings felt the persistent, penetrating chill.
There was no respite in the sweltering summers either, was there?
None at all. Cooking fires burning all day, combined with those straw-stuffed mattresses, meant suffocating heat in the sleeping areas, making rest almost impossible.
And everyone stank, you mentioned?
Oh yeah. Sweaty bodies and unwashed linens attracted hordes of flies and mosquitoes, filling the air with their buzzing. A constant irritating presence.
Flies and mosquitoes. Lovely.
Since baths were a rare luxury, most people went months without washing, and bed sheets were never stripped or cleaned. Summer nights buzzed with biting pests, and there was simply no relief from the heat or the relentless itching. This really makes you think about our modern climate control, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Air conditioning is a miracle.
The sheer ability to simply adjust the thermostat. For them, their lives were dictated by the sun and the raw wind and damp.
The concept of central heating simply didn't exist. Only the very, very rich might have had separate bedchambers built directly over fireplaces, and even then, few actually did.
Extremely rare luxury.
Even in castles with their grand great halls, the central fire had to be carefully banked for the night to prevent a catastrophic blaze.
Right, fire safety.
Some nobles did keep a brazier nearby, but inhaling coal smoke in a sealed room could easily choke you to death.
So dangerous either way.
Ultimately, comfort was minimal in every single season. It's just this constant, unrelenting battle against the environment, day and night. No wonder simply existing felt like a triumph some days.
Yeah, just getting through it. So, recalling the struggle. Freezing winters, stifling summers, and the constant, difficult effort just to regulate body temperature.
It sounds exhausting.
Now, let's explore something that might fundamentally shift your understanding of how humans used to sleep. Something that sounds quite strange to us, but was utterly normal for centuries. Forget what you think you know about an 8-hour night.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
The core concept is that medieval people did not sleep 8 hours straight. They typically had what was called a first sleep, which would begin around sunset and last until approximately midnight.
First sleep. After that first sleep, they experienced a natural awakening. They would then have an hour or two of quiet wakefulness.
Awake in the middle of the night.
Exactly. And following this period, they would transition into a second sleep, which would last until dawn. This was simply their rhythm.
Wow. So 2 distinct sleeps.
Modern historians like Roger Eckersh and others have meticulously found court and personal records that casually mention first sleep and second sleep, definitively proving this was a routine and accepted pattern of rest, not an anomaly.
It wasn't just insomnia then.
Not at all. There's even a concrete example from a colonial court case that actually hinged on an event happening precisely between the 2 sleeps.
No way. It was that common.
Apparently so. It's pretty remarkable to consider how a fundamental human experience like sleep could be so profoundly different across time.
It really is.
These midnight hours, the period between the 2 sleeps, were considered a perfectly normal time for activity, not a symptom of insomnia, as we might think of it today.
So what do? Just lie there?
Sometimes. People would often use this time to pray their breviaries or chant psalms. Monks, for instance, would frequently rise for matins, their early morning prayer service, around 2 to 3 a.m.
Right, the monk's schedule.
Some individuals would feed their fires, check on their animals, or even sneak out to relieve themselves.
Ah, the corner pee again.
Perhaps. And interestingly, the time between sleeps was also a time for sex, advised at least one medieval guide.
Really? That was the recommended time.
Because this was considered a particularly good time to conceive children. Others simply lay awake, maybe reflecting on their dreams or engaging in quiet conversation.
It truly makes you rethink what insomnia means, doesn't it?
Completely.
For them, that wakefulness was just life, part of the natural rhythm.
What's truly striking is that this segmented sleep was not considered abnormal at all. In fact, waking up for hours in the middle of the night was so normal, it was actually prescribed as a healthy and pious practice.
Prescribed, like encouraged.
Yeah. Church fathers, for example, specifically recommended lying in bed and praying during this midnight watch period, seeing it as a time for spiritual reflection.
So it was a spiritual opportunity.
Wealthier individuals might even note down their dreams in diaries or consult interpreters about the omens they believe their dreams held, treating them as serious messages.
Taking dreams very seriously.
It was only much later, maybe the 18th, 19th century, that continuous 7 to 8 hours sleep became the accepted norm. Probably influenced by things like artificial light and an industrial work schedule.
Artificial light changed everything.
To a medieval mind, sleeping 8 unbroken hours would have seemed incredibly odd, even possibly lazy.
Lazy.
They would have blinked at us for such excessive sleep. It's truly fascinating how our sleep patterns are shaped so deeply by culture and environment. This biphasic sleep, it feels almost natural when you think about it. Before artificial light completely changed our relationship with the night.
It does feel strangely natural, yeah.
So just remember the rhythm of first sleep, a period of wakefulness, and then second sleep. That was the natural way people rested for centuries. 2 sleeps a night. Amazing.
As the sun dipped below the horizon, the medieval world transformed entirely. Without our modern lights and constant hum, night became a very different domain, shaped by limited visibility, strict routines, and the ever-present shadow of danger.
Pitch black.
Pretty much. After dusk, the world was plunged into darkness, save for maybe the faint glow of the moon or the occasional stars.
People relied on very dim and short-lived light sources. Rush lights, those rush stalks dipped in fat.
Right, greasy things.
Or tallow candles or simple oil lamps. These barely pushed back the gloom. Most people simply went to bed soon after nightfall because there wasn't enough light to do anything else.
Makes sense.
If a household needed to move around in the dark, they had small lanterns or just felt their way around by memory. You can imagine the feeling of fumbling in almost complete darkness, guided only by the tiny flickering glow of a weak candle.
Very atmospheric, but probably annoying. Monks and nuns, who were devout, had a truly relentless schedule. They would rise multiple times each night, specifically for prayer services, regardless of how tired they felt.
We mentioned matins.
Exactly. Matins, the midnight office, was chanted around 2:3 to 3:0 a.m., followed by lauds at dawn around 5 or 6 a.m. Then they would sleep only briefly before prime. This meant they had very little uninterrupted rest.
Broken sleep was their norm.
There's even a medieval monk's joke about it, saying he was naturally waking anyway, so the church just formalized it.
Chuckles, right. Making a virtue of necessity.
A certain hint of monastic resignation mixed with practicality in that thought. Towns also had very strict curfews and guards. After dark, towns locked up completely. A bell or a horn would often signal curfew, which literally meant cover the fire.
Right, put out the fires.
A command to extinguish hearths to prevent accidental blazes. Women would douse their hearth embers with ash, and all city gates would be firmly barred for the night. No entry or exit.
Locked in for the night.
In medieval Galway, for instance, one bell was run nightly, and gates were locked by 10 p.m. In Kilkenny, watchmen guarded from curfew to cockcrow.
All night long.
Being caught outside after curfew could lead to arrest or even death for trespassing. Authorities would patrol with dogs and weapons, and ironically, the night watchmen were sometimes as dangerous as the thieves they were hunting.
Oh, great. Danger from both sides.
It's quite a thought. This really highlights how much of our modern world relies on abundant light. For them, the night was a powerful, almost tangible presence dictating everything.
There was effectively no nightlife as we understand it today, right? No going out for fun.
Not really.
Yeah.
Nightlife for them was either crime or holiness, not relaxation. Darkness was deeply synonymous with vulnerability.
Makes sense.
Monks specifically preached that demons prowled at night, so people tended to stay in groups or under the vigil of others, finding safety in numbers.
Safety in the shared bed, maybe.
Perhaps. In villages, shepherds or town watchmen might blow horns or fire guns if suspicious figures moved about in the gloom. Public executioners would even take advantage of night's cover to ambush suspects, using the darkness.
Grim.
Anyone awake at night, just moving about, really risked being suspected of witchcraft or of plotting a crime. It was a time of deep suspicion.
Don't get caught wandering.
And, on top of the physical dangers, that period between the first and second sleep was considered a spiritually sensitive time. Some believed that making noise during this time could actually wake evil spirits, making people even more cautious.
So you had to be quiet then, too.
It seems so. The night held such a different weight back then, didn't it? It wasn't just a time for rest, but a frontier where the physical and spiritual dangers felt very, very real and ever-present.
So just remember the profound darkness, the strict curfews, and that pervasive sense of danger and spiritual presence that defined medieval nights. A very different world after sunset. Stepping even deeper into the medieval mind, we encounter the unseen terrors of the night. Fears that weren't just folklore, but deeply held beliefs that shaped every shadow and every unexplained sound after dusk.
Right.
This is where the world of the spiritual truly intertwines with sleep. There was a genuine, pervasive fear that night was when the devil and witches roamed free, their powers strongest under the cover of darkness.
The witching hour.
Exactly. Folklore referred to midnight, or sometimes 3 a.m., which was considered the invert of Christ's death hour, as the witching hour or the devil's hour.
Britannica notes that this was the time when the powers of witches and other supernatural beings are believed to be strongest.
Even Shakespeare dramatized this fear, writing, "'Tis now the very witching time of night, when churchyards yawn and hell itself breathes out contagion." The idea was deeply embedded in their cultural consciousness. To protect themselves, people locked their doors, hung herbs like St. John's wort over doorways,
Protection charms.
and actively avoided walking alone after dark, lest they cross paths with a demon or a succubus. You can almost see the image of those herbs hanging over a doorway, a desperate attempt at protection against the unseen.
And then there were the deeply unsettling experiences of incubi and succubi. Nightmares of suffocation or assault were directly blamed on these demons, not on, natural phenomena.
Like sleep paralysis.
Exactly. Medical texts from the period describe incubus nightmares where victims felt immobile, as if a heavy being lay directly on their chest. That sounds exactly like sleep paralysis.
A 13th century doctor named Bernard de Gordon recorded that common folk described a little old woman pressing on them while they slept. Fascinatingly, this is an early description of what we now understand as sleep paralysis.
Wow, they call it a little old woman.
There were also firm beliefs in incubi, male demons who would rape women in their sleep, and succubi, female demons assaulting men. There were even terrifying stories of demon-seeded pregnancies, making these fears incredibly real and personal. So sleep paralysis or even erotic dreams might be interpreted as literal demonic visits, requiring urgent prayers or even exorcisms to banish the evil.
That's terrifying.
It's chilling to think about how they interpreted common physiological experiences through such a powerful lens of fear and the supernatural. Every shiver, every strange dream had a grand, terrifying explanation.
Because of these profound fears, households kept various talismans under their pillows, like iron horseshoes, crucifixes, or saint medals, hoping for divine protection.
Something tangible to hold on to.
On a personal level, people would clasp their rosaries as they drifted off to sleep, their fingers finding comfort in the beads. Many families would say a formal prayer at bedtime, specifically to ward off evil.
Bedtime prayers had real weight.
Some even went to extreme precautions, preparing written confessions or beads so that if they died suddenly in the night, a priest could quickly perform last rites and ensure their soul's salvation.
Preparing for sudden death every night.
In monasteries, where superstition was not tolerated, monks were forbidden from sleeping with knives. But the very existence of this rule clearly shows that it was a common practice for people to keep blades at hand for self-defense against perceived threats, real or imagined.
Right, the rule proves the practice.
Overall, the medieval night was as full of psychological dread as it was of very real dangers.
It truly paints a picture of a world where the line between reality and the spiritual was incredibly thin, wasn't it?
Very thin.
And the night was the prime stage for that encounter. Every rustle was a potential demon, every strange feeling, a spiritual attack.
So, considering those fears, remember the pervasive fear of witches and demons, the interpretation of sleep paralysis as incubus visits, and the reliance on charms and prayers for protection. It's a heavy burden to take to bed. From the fear of the night, we shift to its mysteries, the world of dreams. For medieval people, dreams weren't just random brain activity. They were profound messages, portents, maybe even windows into the divine or diabolical.
Messages in sleep.
Most medieval people deeply believed that dreams were inherently meaningful. They were thought to be either divine warnings sent from above or diabolic tricks from evil spirits.
One or the other.
And this belief was so pervasive that scholarly and religious texts from the period simply abounded with interpretation guides, thick books dedicated to decoding the messages of the night.
Dream dictionaries.
Kind of, yeah. There's even a concrete anecdote from a chronicler named Arnold Fitzthedmar from the 13th century. He recorded his mother's dream about wood and marble.
Wood and marble, okay.
And a learned clerk immediately decoded it as predicting her husband's absence at the child's birth and his return at dawn.
And did it happen?
Remarkably, the events unfolded exactly as interpreted, further solidifying their belief in the power of dreams. Stories like this were incredibly common.
Wow.
Waking dreams were believed to foretell births, deaths, battles, or even the fate of crops. It's quite astonishing to consider the predictive power they attributed to these fleeting nighttime visions.
Even bad dreams had profound meaning, right? Nightmares weren't just nightmares.
Not at all. They were often seen as moral signals or punishments sent from a divine source, a warning against sin.
So a bad dream meant you did something wrong.
Possibly. A tormenting dream being chased by demons, or drowning, for example, could be interpreted as a punishment for sin, or a divine admonition to change one's ways. That adds another layer of anxiety.
In some legal cases, a person's vivid dreams or sleep disturbances were actually used as evidence of guilt or possession.
Dreams as legal evidence. Seriously.
For example, afflictions might be blamed on witchcraft based on a dream. People took dreams very seriously. Kings, incredibly, would even consult astrologers or churchmen about a portentous dream before making major decisions like going to war.
Consulting dream interpreters before battle. That's incredible. How deeply integrated dreams were into their daily lives, guiding decisions, shaping their understanding of right and wrong, even justice.
Sleep itself held significant moral symbolism, too. Some saints, for instance, boasted that they needed almost no sleep at all. They practiced something called vigilatio, to pray constantly.
Staying awake for God.
And this was seen as a profound sign of holiness, a mark of their devotion. On the flip side, others warned that excessive sleep was simply laziness, a moral failing.
Can't sleep too much.
A saintly hermit might spend nights in vigil instead of sleeping in a bed, specifically to avoid temptation, reflecting the strong belief that staying awake warded off demons.
Right. Stay awake. Stay safe from evil.
By contrast, a young person who loved to sleep too much could easily be scolded for it by their elders. Some religious friars even claimed to have prophetic dreams or visions while they were sleeping, seeing them as direct communication from God.
Visions in sleep.
Allegories of the time warned that indulgent dreams, especially erotic or cruel ones, were considered demonic, a trick from evil, while humble, pious dreams were believed to be divine.
Good dreams versus bad dreams had huge implications.
The night's blurry line between conscious and unconscious was thus viewed as a gateway to the spiritual realm, something to be treated with immense caution and piety. So sleep wasn't just a physical necessity, it was a moral and spiritual battlefield.
Yeah.
What a profound weight to carry into your dreams each night.
Yeah, really. Just think about it. Dreams as vital messages, interpreted for omens or moral lessons, and that strong link between sleep and spiritual virtue or danger. So much pressure on sleep.
After exploring where and how they slept and what haunted their minds, let's consider the relentless interruptions. Because in the medieval world, a truly uninterrupted night was almost an impossibility. Anything and everything could jolt you awake.
Oh, I bet.
Your alarm clock in the medieval world was quite literally a rooster or a bell. Roosters would begin crowing well before dawn, their sounds pounding against the roof and walls of the houses.
No snooze button on a rooster.
Definitely not. And they weren't alone. Dogs barked at any suspicious rustle in the yard, donkeys brayed, sheep bleated, and pigs squealed as they jostled for food.
The Farmyard Symphony.
In towns, drunken revelers or quarrels would often spill into the early morning hours, their shouts echoing in the quiet. Imagine the sheer cacophony of animal and human noise, amplified in the dark stillness of night.
It sounds incredibly noisy. Church bells were another constant source of noise. Parishes would ring bells for midnight matins, for early vespers, for funerals, or to signal fires. A distant toll could startle everyone awake, even if they were miles away.
People even called it the murder of a bell.
The murder of a bell. Wow. That shows how they felt about it. And by late medieval times, churches had multiple daily ringings. There was simply no muffling it. You lived by the bells.
And of course, physical pain was a relentless alarm, an internal one. Any ache in your body would just jerk you awake from slumber. Toothaches, for instance, throbbed mercilessly.
Oh, toothaches without painkillers. Awful. Other pains were just as common and equally agonizing. Arthritis, especially gout, would flare up painfully at night in cold, swollen joints.
The cold would make it worse.
Infections would throb or itch. Scabs and ulcers would itch terribly under blankets. Ulcerated teeth pounded with discomfort, and old wounds burned with constant agony.
No relief.
Women in labor or soldiers wounded in battle suffered throbbing pains with absolutely nothing to dull them. No modern painkillers to offer relief. It really gives you a profound empathy for the unrelenting pain they endured.
And those biting pests we talked about earlier, fleas and lice.
Oh yeah. Itchy flea and louse bites would often prick a sleeper awake, causing constant discomfort. We even know that people tried unusual remedies, like sleeping necklaces or wires soaked in hot vinegar.
Vinegar necklaces? To kill bugs?
Hoping to kill the bugs and stay cooler, apparently. If a hungry rat or a mouse scampered across a toe or started nibbling an ear,
Nibbling an ear?
it was an instant wake-up. Bedbugs, leaving red, itchy bites on your skin, could literally cause screaming, just from the sheer irritation.
It feels like a constant battle, doesn't it? From the outside world to their own bodies, everything seemed designed to make sleep a struggle. No wonder rest was such a precious commodity.
Totally. Then there was the household chaos. A spilled fire or a knocked-over lamp could quickly blaze up the house, scattering everyone from sleep in a panic.
A real and present danger.
And interpersonal conflict was sadly frequent among hard men living hard lives. Domestic violence or fights would often rouse an entire household. A drunken brawl, a servant's flogging heard through thin walls, or even armed robbers breaking in. Medieval inns sometimes had brawls that would spill right into the rooms where people were trying to sleep, shattering any chance of peace.
No escaping the noise.
Even the weather and animals could be alarming. Heavy rain drumming on roofs, sudden thunderclaps, or a collapsing roof could panic you awake, throwing you back into the harsh reality of the night.
A collapsing roof.
Right. Imagine a herd of sheep outside, shivering in a snowstorm, their bleating and movements enough to wake a shepherd and make him pile on more hay to protect them.
Always something.
In cities, waking to a sudden frigate sail's horn or the sound of startled horse hooves in a narrow street could mean a military patrol was approaching, or even an assassin.
High-stakes sounds.
Basically, there was no guarantee of a peaceful night. Anything from the mundane to the truly disastrous could, and often did, wake you.
It's almost as if the night was less for sleeping and more for heightened vigilance, you know?
Exactly.
Every single sound had a meaning, every sensation a potential threat. What an utterly tiring way to live.
Yeah. So just to revisit it, imagine the cacophony of alarms that broke medieval sleep. Animals, bells, human pain, biting pests, and environmental chaos, all conspiring against a peaceful night.
Oh.
Relentless. Now, let's turn our gaze to the most vulnerable sleepers in the medieval world, the children. Their nights, often cold, crowded, and steeped in both real and imagined dangers, were a stark reflection of the harsh realities of the time.
Oh, the children, yeah.
To begin, children almost never had their own bed until very late in the medieval period. Babies and toddlers would typically sleep in the same bed as their parents or siblings.
Full piled in together.
The only exceptions were the very richest families who might afford separate cradles or bassinets for their infants. The common practice was that a mother would wrap her baby tightly in swaddling cloths,
Swaddling, right.
binding its arms and legs, and then prop it in a straw-filled basket on the floor, or right at her side in the main bed. Sometimes. One source notes, parents were warned not to sleep with their infant children for fear of overlaying and smothering them, implying that some did share beds despite this grave danger.
Oh no, overlaying.
It highlights the desperate choices parents faced. Many parents tightly swaddle newborns, binding their arms and legs, and then lay them on straw in a cradle, believing this kept them safe and warm.
Safe, but maybe not comfortable.
If the baby cried, often it was simply scolded and ignored to avoid disturbing others in the shared sleeping space.
Just ignored.
And there were very few attempts at baby-proofing as we know it today. If a toddler rolled into the hearth fire or fell downstairs or even into a well that was considered an accident, albeit a common and tragic one.
Oh, how awful. Common accidents.
Some lawsuits from medieval courts even show that babies accidentally killed were referred to as tragedies, not crimes. The impersonal legal language of the time really contrasts with the profound personal tragedy involved.
That's chilling.
The grim reality was a high infant mortality rate. Half of all medieval children died in childhood.
Half. That's staggering.
Many babies froze at night on cold floors, or succumbed to pneumonia, malnutrition, or infection. Sickness spread incredibly easily in cramped beds and crowds, leading to rapid decline. Just heartbreaking.
Families, though they expected child loss due to the harsh realities of life, still experienced profound heartbreak. Chronicles even mention mothers going insane when their infants died. Understandably. Despite these grim statistics, there's no evidence that children were neglected. Parents absolutely showed love, but early medicine was simply powerless against so many threats. Still, nights were undeniably tragic for children. Some would cry themselves silent just to avoid the whip or further punishment.
Cry themselves silent? Oh, that's terrible. It's a really heartbreaking reality, isn't it? The sheer fragility of life, especially for the very young, laid bare in the darkness of the night.
And the dark and cold conditions further fueled children's fears, leading to terrifying night terrors. Mothers would often tell tales of witches, goblins, or the wild hound to scare their children into bed.
Scaring them to sleep.
Using fear as a way to enforce quiet. If a child had a bad dream or experienced sleep paralysis, parents might simply slap him awake, or attribute the episode directly to the devil.
Slap them awake. No comfort.
Very few consoling words or attempts to understand the child's distress. A crying baby might just be let quiet, lest it attract unwanted attention, like plague rats, or anger the father with its noise.
Just leave them to cry.
Stories of children sleepwalking into harm abounded. In lore, a sleepwalker could wander into the devil's realm or encounter ghosts if they were unaccompanied, a terrifying thought for families.
Sleepwalking was dangerous too.
Because of these fears, some families kept their little ones tightly confined indoors, or even resorted to chaining infants in cradles to keep them safe through the night.
Chaining babies. Oh my God.
What a crushing weight of responsibility and fear for parents. The night wasn't just dangerous for them, but a constant, palpable threat to the tiny lives they cherished.
It really puts things in perspective. So just remember for a moment the shared beds, that incredibly high infant mortality, and the very real dangers, both physical and superstitious, that shaped children's nights. So much hardship.
As we drift towards the end of our journey, we arrive at a profound connection that deeply colored the medieval perception of sleep. Its intimate relationship with death.
Ah, sleep and death.
For them, every night's rest held the potential for a final, unexpected slumber. Falling asleep was considered spiritually dangerous if you died unprepared.
Right, you needed to be ready.
Medieval Christianity strongly insisted on confession and last rites before death as essential steps for salvation. Dying overnight was deeply feared, precisely because no priest could arrive in time to administer those rites.
Couldn't get the priests fast enough.
That's why people kept confession scrolls and rosaries right under their pillows for a last-minute spiritual preparation.
Spiritual first aid kit.
Many would go to bed reciting prayers, or even guarded by a widow or a layman with a cross nearby. This was, so if someone took their last breath, that person could immediately perform a quick exorcism and absolution, trying to save the soul. You can just visualize the scene of a vigil by a bedside. The quiet, murmured prayers and the dim, flickering light.
Wow. Constant vigilance for death. During times of plague or fever, entire families could perish all at once, the illness sweeping through a household without warning.
The plague years. Unimaginable.
Chronicles often describe grim scenes of an entire family found dead in bed by morning, with no one left alive to call for help. A truly desolate sight.
All gone overnight.
Funerals for such sudden deaths would happen at dawn as quickly as possible. Bodies were simply left where they died until the morning. Of course, decomposition would begin right away. Fleas and maggots would swarm the corpse in bedding. But there was no concept of an immediate morgue or hygienic removal. The same room that was slept in by night could hold the corpse by day until burial.
Sleeping next to the dead.
It's a profound sense of mortality and the raw, unfiltered reality of death right there in their living spaces.
Some pilgrims or saints, in legend, would intentionally sleep on tombs or in graveyards overnight, either as a form of penance or to receive visions from the other world.
Sleeping in graveyards, why?
Sleeping among the bones was believed to purify the soul or bring dreams of the other world, connecting the living with the dead. Whether monks did this to atone or to truly immerse themselves in the symbolism of death, it powerfully shows how entwined sleep and mortality were in the medieval mind.
It's a striking contrast, isn't it? How deeply sleep and death were interwoven, almost two sides of the same coin in their worldview. Rest, but also the eternal rest.
On the other side of the coin, the denial of sleep was a cruel form of torture. Convicted criminals were often intentionally kept awake before their execution. They certainly didn't get it comfortable last night.
Sleep deprivation is punishment.
They would be trussed up in stocks or in a dungeon cell, sleepless and restless, often chained to a wall, until the dawn gallows.
Kept awake all night before hanging.
Medieval legal records specifically note that hanging or burning often took place first thing in the morning, after a night of forced wakefulness, emphasizing the cruelty of the punishment, extending even to their rest. So sleep could be a spiritual preparation for death, but also, its denial, a cruel prelude to it. The profound gravity of their nightly existence is truly humbling to consider.
Yeah, it really is. Just remember the fear of dying unprepared, the grim reality of plague deaths, and the brutal use of sleep deprivation as a form of torture, highlighting sleep's deep, often dark, connection to mortality. Sleep was never simple. We've touched on it before, but let's take a closer look at the privileged few. One might assume that wealth equaled comfort, but as we'll discover, even nobles and royals with all their riches faced surprisingly similar struggles for a truly good night's rest.
Right, not immune to the misery.
A noble's canopy bed, far from being a luxury flair, was actually crucial for survival. The thick curtains were specifically designed to block drafts and deter rats,
The rats again.
a purely practical measure. The stark reality was that even kings, wrapped in their finest furs, would still feel the biting cold seep into their bones.
Even the king was cold.
Some royal accounts even describe kings having footmen warm hot irons at the foot of their bed.
Hot irons. Like for clothes.
Seems so. Or sleeping next to fireplaces, ironically, just as likely to suffer burns as they were to freeze. They spent absolute fortunes on feathers, but it was for warmth, not fluff, as we might imagine.
Feathers for insulation.
You could just see the image of a servant carefully placing a hot iron at the foot of a grand bed, desperately trying to bring some comfort to royalty.
And royals and nobles almost never slept unaccompanied, right? Bodyguards were literally in the bedchamber.
A constant presence. Courtiers and guards would camp on the floor around the bed for security, always vigilant. It was even common for a king to shift his sleeping quarters nightly, just to confuse potential assassins.
Moving the royal bed every night.
A deeply paranoid but practical measure. Queens and princesses often had multiple ladies-in-waiting who slept on cushions nearby for both company and security.
Sleepover every night.
And here's an unusual detail. Heavy earplugs or even gags were sometimes used at night, specifically to keep servants from gossiping too loudly.
Gags. Seriously.
A strange blend of security and social control. It's a moment of disbelief mixed with an understanding of the profound need for quiet in such a public life.
Medieval kings lived with intense assassination paranoia, constantly fearing murder in their sleep, a very real threat.
Understandable. To counter this, they hired personal bodyguards who stayed awake throughout the watch, or even used trusted double bodies to sleep in their place,
A body double.
creating a deceptive target. One source notes that kings would sometimes move their beds for no discernible reason, purely to confound conspirators. However, assassinations often happen at dawn or in cellars, not in locked bedchambers. Royal sleepers still relied heavily on oath-sworn knights and sealed chambers for their protection.
A constant negotiation with danger.
This really drives home that even at the very top of society, the basic human need for security and comfort was a constant fragile negotiation. Absolute luxury wasn't truly achievable.
While nobles' beds might have had feathers and multiple sheets, providing a softer surface, the basic problems of the medieval night remained the same. Parasites simply didn't care about your title or your wealth.
Bedbugs don't care if you're a duke.
Apparently not. Accounts exist of nobles specifically complaining about bedbugs and lice, just like everyone else. The upper classes did try to achieve a semblance of hygiene, using perfumed pillows stuffed with herbs to mask scents.
Trying to cover the stink.
But rolls of straw still inevitably held bugs and their odors. And no matter how soft the mattress, the stress and guilt from things like murder, betrayal, or sex scandals often gave them nightmares and insomnia.
Wealth doesn't buy peace of mind.
Court revelry could run late, meaning even nobles often came back to bed drunk and uncomfortable, not rested or refreshed. It's a powerful reminder that even vast wealth couldn't buy true comfort or peace of mind when the fundamental conditions of life were so harsh. A truly shared human experience despite the wildly different circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just to recap for the powerful. Warmth was survival, security was paramount, and even soft beds couldn't escape the pervasive issues of pests and deep personal anxieties. Well, money couldn't solve everything.
As we gently bring our journey through medieval sleep to a close, let's reflect on some of the most startling and perhaps truly bizarre aspects we've uncovered.
Okay, the really weird stuff.
These are the details that really highlight just how profoundly different their world was from ours. Bizarre fact number 1. Biphasic sleep was normal.
We covered that, yeah, first and second sleep.
Forget 8 hours straight. Waking up in the middle of the night between sleeps was completely expected, even encouraged. Makes you wonder if our modern struggle with insomnia, in a strange way, was invented by artificial light.
Pushing us away from that natural rhythm. A historian who uncovered these references commented that all of that had slipped out of our awareness and our histories. They would have simply laughed at us complaining about insomnia.
Seeing it as perfectly normal. Bizarre fact number 2. Sleep deprivation was a common form of torture.
Ugh. During witch hunts and inquisitions, suspects were often systematically forced to stay awake until they confessed to things they hadn't actually done. No cozy chair afterward, just continued suffering.
Horrible. Bizarre fact number 3. Monastic all-nighters. Orthodox monks routinely woke at midnight or 2 a.m. for matins, then again pre-dawn for lauds.
4 to 6 times a night.
In a monastery, you might rise that often for prayers, seen as holy, but for anyone else, it would have been absolute torture, blurring the lines of reality.
Dissolving altered states, probably.
Bizarre fact number 4: sleeping in cemeteries. As a form of penance or devotion, some saints and pilgrims would spend nights in graveyards or catacombs, literally sleeping on tombs.
Sleeping on graves.
Ah.
The smell and the sights were supposed to encourage spiritual dreams or deep meditation on mortality. Today we might call that glamping, but it was anything but glamorous.
Not my kind of glamping. Bizarre fact number 5: sex equals visions. It was widely believed that having sex before sleep made divine or erotic dreams more likely to occur.
Really, some saintly guides even recommended it as a preparation for prophecy, seeing a direct link between physical intimacy and spiritual insight.
Okay. Bizarre fact number 6: all-night vigils. Townsfolk sometimes held vigils for saints or in response to plagues, staying awake at church altars for 3 to 4 nights straight.
3 or 4 nights. Entire villages might drink herbal tea and pray through these nights, often hallucinating from the fatigue-induced visions, genuinely believing they were seeing divine signs.
Visions from exhaustion. It's astonishing how deeply their beliefs shaped their physical experiences, even inducing visions through sleep deprivation. The human mind is truly remarkable.
Yeah, it really is.
Bizarre fact number 7: dreams in court cases. Courts occasionally accepted dreams as actual evidence.
You mentioned this. There are records of litigants claiming dream witness or omen in lawsuits, and even royal councils discussing prophetic dreams of nobles before battles.
Seriously considering dream omens for war. Amazing. Bizarre fact number 8: criminals denied sleep. Felons awaiting execution could be banished to a black cage or dungeon cell, forced to stay awake, chained to the wall under bright torchlight all night.
That bright torchlight, then executed at dawn. Their crimes extended to cruelty and punishment, even in their last hours.
Just brutal. Bizarre fact number 9: herbal hypnotics. Medieval apothecaries had potent and sometimes even deadly sleep remedies.
Sleeping potions. One safe recipe was dwale, a narcotic mix of bile, lettuce, opium, and henbane.
Bile and opium and henbane, that doesn't sound safe at all.
Right. People also used other remedies like mandrake, willow bark, mugwort, or wild lettuce tea to try to knock themselves out, often with hallucinogenic side effects.
Knock yourself out and trip. Okay. And bizarre fact number 10: sleepwalking equaled witchcraft.
Oh, right. Walking or talking in your sleep was often seen as a sign of witchcraft or demonic possession. A sleepwalker might be suspected of flying at night with witches.
Flying with witches.
Inquests into strange murders sometimes even cited the deceased as sleepwalking, using it as a potential explanation. Shakespeare's Macbeth would certainly understand this deep-seated fear.
Lady Macbeth. Yeah.
Each of these facts, on its own, is like a little window into a world so different from our own. But taken together, they really paint a profound picture of just how intertwined spiritual belief, physical hardship, and everyday life were in the medieval mind. It's a truly humbling thought about how far we've come in understanding something as fundamental as sleep.
From biphasic sleep to sleepwalking being considered witchcraft, these bizarre facts truly remind us that the medieval night was a realm of its own unique realities. So much we just don't experience anymore.
So when you put it all together, medieval sleep was just a far cry from our cozy modern nights. Between the biting cold, the pervasive filth, the scuttling beasts, the terrifying nightmares, and the deep-seated superstition, going to bed was always a calculated risk.
We truly hope you're glad you're listening to this, maybe from a comfy chair, wide awake, and not asking anyone to watch your back tonight. That's all for now. We've come to the end of our gentle little story for tonight.
And if you're still here, that's perfectly okay. Sometimes your mind just needs a little more space to wander, and that's a tender, beautiful thing. You don't have to rush off to sleep. Just be here, however you are. You deserve quiet moments like this. You deserve to rest, to be held by stillness. There's no pressure, no expectations, just soft breathing, gentle thoughts in the hush of night.
The world is a softer place with you in it. Good night, truly.
Just listen to the rain sounds now.